But I hope too that if people hate this, that they don't blame it on Anthony Mackie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now being Captain America,
I'm
because
sure
nothing here is his fault.
So the Falcon has now become Captain America, and there's a new Falcon, and there's a new Widow, and there's a new president, and other than that, it's kind of the same old, same old. Captain America: Brave New World opening in theaters this weekend.
Yeah, this is a huge bummer. And this is a movie that actually looked pretty cool from the trailers. It looked like a 70s kind of paranoid political thriller, which of course Winter Soldier was. And that in retrospect is looking like one of the best ones of all, more and more every time a new Marvel movie comes out. So yeah, you definitely need to have done some homework here. You need to know a lot about the other tangential stuff going on here. You will be quizzed on it afterward. So come hang out with us, because if there's a new Marvel movie, we will always review it for you. You know, we're in the middle of awards season and we like to do serious international films, but come on. It's a new Captain America movie, so we're here for you for that as well. So come and hang out with us.
You're not Steve Rogers.
You're right. I'm not.
Okay, so this is going to be a non-spoiler review. I know a lot of people have different ideas about what does and does not constitute a spoiler. They're in the eye of the beholder, but there is some stuff that happens in this movie that we don't want to ruin for you, so we shall not. But the trailer kind of does a lot of that for you already, so who are we to decide?
Exactly.
Anyway, so yes, Anthony Mackie is now officially Captain America. This is a thing that we have been building towards since the end of Endgame. And of course, in the Disney Plus series, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I still always want to call Falcon and the Snowman.
Of course.
It is different. And so we are in a world where Thunderbolt Ross, now being played by Harrison Ford, is running for president. He becomes president. There is an assassination attempt on him. And there is a quality to this that is like Winter Soldier as far as the events surrounding the assassination attempt.
Sure.
And so
there's a conspiracy afoot.
Right. So from the very beginning, it's already reminding you of better Marvel movies, and will continue to do so over and over again. Yes. So Danny Ramirez, who was in Top Gun Maverick, is now sort of gunning to be Falcon now that Falcon is Cap. And it's how they have to uncover this conspiracy from within, but it's also trying to tie back to many other Marvel movies that maybe you don't remember or even like that much. And so it really helps greatly to remember a whole lot about the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk. This is essentially a sequel to that more than it is a Captain America movie, I would say.
Go back and read the wiki page, if nothing else, because I sure forgot about that movie.
I did too, and including like, oh, right, Tim Blake Nelson. He was in that, and he's here too. And then also you need to remember some stuff about Eternals and Black Widow. And also you need to have watched, I think, that Disney Plus series. There's a lot of stuff that it's trying to tie into those things. And the more that it tries to be connective tissue to other parts of the MCU, the more it loses its own way. And in the beginning, there's a lot of hope here as far as like, this looks cool and substantive and smart. It was directed by Julius Onah, who did a really great indie a few years back called Loose, which Matt and I reviewed. That was Kelvin Harrison Jr. and Octavia Spencer and Naomi Watts. Like a really solid, smart, well-acted indie. And those qualities exist here for a while. And I had hope in the beginning with like the camera movements and the fight choreography. You can really see what he's doing, and you can see the cool stuff he's doing with the wings and with the shield. And I had hope for this for a while, and then it totally loses its way and tries to become too many other kinds of movies en route to the inevitable CGI extravaganza that is the climactic showdown. And then there is a little end credit scene at the very, very end of the end credits, which is a big shrug. So this is a total mess all along, and it had a great deal of potential. So I'm kind of bummed about this.
Yeah, it's worth noting Julius Onah also directed the Cloverfield Paradox, which was that really shitty outer space Cloverfield movie that they tried to drop like a Beyonce album. Like there was suddenly an ad during the Super Bowl. Hey, after the game's over, this is on Netflix. Like, what? And we all ran to watch it. It was like, oh wait, this is terrible. This isn't quite that bad, but it's not great, and it's not it's a bit of a letdown, given that I think the idea of Anthony Mackie stepping into the Shield and becoming Captain America is a great idea. And I think that, in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that show had the real estate to like give you that character, to let you know a lot more about Sam Wilson, all the stuff with, his family life, and Adepero Uduye is his sister, and the introduction of Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley, the original super soldier, and his whole backstory. We get him here, and if you haven't watched the show, you're like,
who's this guy?
What? I don't, and I worry now that the Marvel paradigm is going to be, well, the TV show is where we have the real estate to give you character, and the films are just going to be like plot and incident and explosions and
and butts in seats, buying movie tickets, right?
Exactly. And so there's 5 credited screenwriters on this. I don't know a lot about the apparently tortured production history of this film, but it feels very kind of thrown together. And as you pointed out in your out of the theater reaction, Giancarlo Esposito walks away with this movie. He can show up and be given nothing but like exposition and threats, and it's riveting. And he is giving you a fully fleshed character out of nothing. That the other very talented cast members here don't really have the wherewithal to do, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's a great menacing presence always.
Yeah.
And can make a meal out of nothing, as you say. Yeah, I don't really know a whole lot about the tortured production history either. And I don't always know that you can see that as a result on the screen. Like, we don't know. But one thing I did read was that character was inserted in later. And thank God for that. Because there are other moments in here where people show up and it's cameos that are meant to lend a great deal of emotional heft, and those feel wedged in. Those feel like after the fact, like, oh, we got to plug this hole, oh, we got to have this person show up, and those didn't land for me. Like, there's one in particular that I think is meant to be really cool that my whole theater was like,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be, this is, in my review for the Film Verdict, I kind of made the joke that we're in the Mayberry RFD period of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and like the big stars have left, the lead characters are gone that we've come to know and care about. And so now it's like, all right, we're going to kick up, these people who have been in sort of supporting roles before. And they have a murderer's row of, the supporting characters include Anthony Mackie and Florence Pugh and people like that. So it's not like they're lacking for talent, but the writing has to be there to sort of bring us on board and to a level of engagement that we had with the Avengers 1.0.
Yeah, the story in and of itself needs to hold together, and so much of this most recent spate of Marvel movies feels like the connective tissue to the next thing. Like it's got its mind on the next thing down the road so much that it can't focus on what's right here in front of you. And that is a problem. Anthony Mackie is great in this. And he's got so much swagger, so much charisma. But then also when he's talking about his imposter syndrome and feeling like I am not Steve Rogers, he's also not got the super serum in him. He's a regular guy. And that's potentially interesting as far as like the tension of how much can he withstand? Like he's not superhuman. And so he brings that, that depth as far as his dramatic abilities as well. Harrison Ford has a couple of really solid scenes here where he just brings gravitas, drink. And and there's hope here with several people like that. So and there's also the score felt really intrusive, like off the top.
Laura Cartman, talented composer, and it just was insistent. It was it kept telling you things in a way that I found really sort of obtrusive.
But even early on, like there's like setting the stage and we're just watching like TV news footage of like exposition of where we are in the world, and the music is like da 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 da. I'm thinking like it was such a disconnect. I'm like, wait, is this in the right place?
Is this 6 o'clock news theme? Like, what are we listening to? The whole thing about him not being super powered, I think, is an idea that gets like about one scene and they don't really ever address it again. There's an unspoken thing, like this movie is going out of its way to be apolitical. even though you have like a black superhero who is wearing the costume of a superhero who has up until now been a white guy, you know, and you get a few sort of throwaway lines from Harrison Ford about like optics, and there's a level of condescension going on where, you know, he's thinking it, but they never really address it. And they never really address the fact that like Thunderbolt Ross is a nightmare as a politician. But, you know, Sam's whole thing's like, well, if we can't work together, then we've already lost. And I'm like, is this the message for 2025? I don't know. I think that maybe this is a film that could have taken some bigger chances, but it seems to be constantly second guessing itself and tamping itself down. Not that anyone's expecting a Marvel movie to be a grand political statement, but I mean, these movies are about the world as we know it, even if it's in a world where superheroes exist. I mean, the whole first chunk of MCU movies are, spoken or not, a response to 9/11, you know? And I think that this movie had the chance to be like, and obviously it's been in production for a while and they didn't know who was going to win the election, but landing as it is right now, it feels weirdly out of step with the world.
But I hope too that if people hate this, that they don't blame it on Anthony Mackie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now being Captain America,
I'm sure
nothing here is his fault.
Exactly, and I'm sure there were the people who were going to do that have been doing it before they saw a frame of this film, assuming they ever see a frame of this film. But yeah, that's a cop out, because he is not the problem here. It's the writing. It is the overall assemblage of this film.
Yeah. The most political this movie gets is like some stuff that resembles Olympus Has Fallen that takes place at the White House. That's like as close to an actual political statement as we get. Anyway, I'm going to say a 4.8 because it has potential for a while. And some people are really good in this. Like Anthony Mackie's really good in this, but it really falls apart.
Yeah, I'm like a 5.5. I think it has some elements that work, but yeah, generally speaking, it's a disappointment. And I think, you know, especially coming off of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think they sort of teed up something potentially interesting and they just don't get there.
All right, it's out in theaters this weekend. Will you see it? Let us know.